standing on a stump preaching. And the thing I told Nick, I said, you know what I noticed most about that picture? Look at all the people in the countryside. People came out of the woodworks to hear Alexander Campbell preach. Brethren, you name the most popular member of the Lord's church that we could put on the sign out in front of this building and announce that he was preaching here next Sunday, and most people wouldn't come anyways. They still wouldn't be interested because they don't know the truth. Paul's words to Timothy, we need to be reminded of from time to time too. He said, take heed to yourselves and to the doctrine, continue in them, for in doing this, you will save both yourself and those that hear you. The founder of the school I graduated from, he was interviewed before he died, and one of the things he said was the reason he became a preacher was to hold himself responsible to the Bible. He figured if he had a secular job, he wouldn't do that the way he needed to. Part of the problem is we just don't want to pay the price. The leadership in the story we just read, they didn't like the price that they had to pay. They didn't like the arrangements of the New Testament. One day they were a big deal at the temple and the synagogue and the city, and the next day you just wanted the brethren. And they didn't want to submit. Some people just don't want to wear the yoke of the one true church. They don't like it. We pay little attention to the lost. We read stories about the Philippian jailer being converted, but we don't stop and realize that probably the most important thing about the Philippian jailer in Acts chapter 16 being baptized is that the Apostle Paul, most people wouldn't have still been there. Remember when the earthquake freed him from his chains? How many people would have taken that to be the providence of God? God's telling me I can leave. And yet Paul didn't leave. And the reason he didn't leave was because he knew that the jailer, it was a death sentence if he let any prisoners get away on his watch. And he didn't want to let those prisoners get away. And so he stayed because he knew the jailer would kill himself and the jailer was lost. Paul's freedom meant less to him than the jailer's eternal soul. And unfortunately, that challenge is too big for many of us. It was too big for the Jewish leadership, and sometimes it's too big for us, but that's where the bar is set. So as we conclude our lesson, notice that the Pharisees could give the correct answer as to which child it was that actually obeyed his father's will. But they didn't see that it was them who were the ones that said, I go, sir, but actually didn't go. I remember my 5th grade teacher one time, I was rebelling against her, but I was being a clever child at the time, and I didn't actually say anything wrong. If you were a blind person or you were just reading the transcript of our conversation between each other, you wouldn't accuse me of saying anything wrong. And she was mad at me anyways, which is when I challenged her by saying, what did I say that's wrong? And she said, you didn't say anything that's wrong, but your actions speak louder than your words. And the fact of the matter is, the church in the world is full of people to whom the Lord says, go work in my vineyard, and they say, I go, sir, but they don't go. They honor the Lord with their lips, and yet their heart is far from me. Purpose of this morning's lesson is to help us to remember, and particularly I think it's important when we're being discouraged from even attending the worship service. I think it's important for us to remember that we have to honor the Lord with more than our lips. We have to honor the Lord with our heart and with our works. And we have to put the Lord's church first in our lives. And so while we're being discouraged from worshiping at the building, it doesn't mean that the Lord's work shouldn't come first. I hope that lesson's been a benefit to you. And God willing, we'll see you in the flesh here at the building in the near future. Have a good day, brother. I love you. Bye-bye.